Hi there, welcome back. This is section 3 of a tutorial that I've been working on color work. And this video is going to cover Intarsia. Hopefully simplify it for you and make it easier to understand and to execute. We'll be working from this chart. We've got 15 stitches wide and 15 rows. And we've got a little garter stitch border on the sides with the Intarsia in the middle. And this is just a very simplified version of the larger chart that is in the tutorial. I'll put a link to the tutorial pattern on Ravelry in the description of this video if you want to check it out. It's free. During the knit along that we're doing in my Ravelry group. It's called Knitting with Suzanne Bryan, and I also have a Facebook group, Knitting with Suzanne Bryan. You can join either one of those groups if you want to participate. We're going to be working with 3 colors, one light, one dark, and one light. 3 strands, 2 colors, the light, the dark, but 3 separate strands, one for this area, one for this area, and one for this area. I don't use butterflies or bobbins. I generally just wind my yarn into a soft center pull ball, and I work with maybe not more than 5 yards at a time, and I just pull it through the work as I'm working. I've found that I've tried bobbins and butterflies, but I spend so much time untangling them that I've found that if I just pull the strands of yarn through the mass of yarns every couple rows, it works pretty good, and I spend much less time trying to detangle the yarn. So we're going to get started. The first row is just these white, one dark, and white. Another thing to notice is Intarsia most of the time is worked flat. It's kind of, it takes a little different technique to work it in the round. It can be done, but it's not so easy. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to knit 7 stitches in the white. And we're starting out with the 3-stitch garter border. I'm also going to show in this video how to do short rows in the garter stitch border so that the length of it matches the length of the stockinette stitch for the Intarsia. Okay, so we've got our 4. Now we're going to add the green. Every time you add a new color, just pull the tail out and put it on the front of the work between the 2 needles so that you have your tail here. You have 3 or 4 inches so you can weave it in later. The body of the yarn goes to the back. And in Intarsia, the color that you just used always goes over the yarn that you're going to use. So the old goes over the top of the new, even when you're starting a new strand. So now you can see it's already trapped by the white yarn going over the top of it. We want to leave a long enough tail that we can weave it in later. And then we're just going to knit 1 dark stitch. Whoops, I split it. Right there. We're going to leave a tail. Then we're going to have our white again. So we drop that to the back. We start up with a new strand of white. We pull the tail over to the front between the 2 needles, so we have a tail of white hanging to the front. We take the green over the back, over the top of the new white, and we're going to work to the end of the row in the white. Now this first row, the stitches will seem loose and sloppy because there's nothing attaching to them, and they will be, but that'll work out. You'll see how it works. That works just fine. Just remember, when you start a new strand, you start with it on the front of the work. Once you've done 1 row, turn the work so you can see the back. Now you'll see that we also have 2 strands hanging on the back, and I tighten these just like that every row. Now we're going to work 3 knits, 3 purls, 3 purls in the dark, 3 purls in the white, and 3 knits. And we'll go over this very slowly, how we do the color changes. There's a little method to it, and it's very simple. but it can seem very complex. And this doesn't matter whether you're throwing or picking, it's the process, it's the color changes. Okay, the white, the light, the color you just used goes over the top of the new color that you're going to pick up. And you can check to make sure it's the right color by pulling on it and seeing that it moves that stitch where it's attached. When you have 6 or 7 or 8 different strands of yarn on here, it can be confusing about which one is attached where. You want to make sure you have the right one. Now we've set that one down. Now this is where it can be confusing. Let's analyze this. So we've got one strand here. These are our tails from the front, so let's get those out of the way. We've got this is the strand that did these stitches. Then we have the green, which is right here. And then we have the white, which is trapped under the green down here, which kind of holds it down a little bit, but that's the color we're going to use next. So we're going to pull it up and over the green, and we're going to purl with that color. And I'll show this a few more times. You'll get plenty of chance to see how it's done. And now that yarn is attached to this white stitch, so we want to pull it down a little bit, make sure the stitch is the right size. And then we're going to purl that garter edge. We're not purling, we're knitting, we're making a garter ridge there. Now we've done one more row. So we're going to do the same thing. We snug this yarn up. Now watch this one, because we've got this extra yarn in here. We're going to snug it up. Okay, that's what makes this tidy on the other side. And I do that after every row. Turn the work. Now on the front, this is where we first started the white, so it's a little bit big, so we can pull that down a little bit. And we can adjust the size of the green stitch also a little bit. We want them to be about the same size as their adjacent stitches. Okay, let's start the next row. This row is going to be just like the last row, only it's a right side row. So we're going to knit over 6. Okay, here's a color change. So we know, right, that we're going to drop this over the green. Where is the green? It's right here. So this has to go, and it's down a little bit because it's trapped when we did the color change last time. So the white comes over it, you pick up the green from underneath. From this side, it looks like this. You have your white from this side's way over here. So you have this white, it goes over the green. You pick up the green. And that green is attached right here to this stitch. You can double check it by pulling on it. I do that a lot to make sure I have the correct yarn. Because when you get 7 or 8 strands on here, you can get confused. So here, see, the white ones are very close together. Which white one should we use? Well, this one goes to this section, this goes to this section, so we drop the green over it and pick up the white. From the front it looks like this. We take the green over the top, pick up the white from underneath. This white one goes over here, so we know it's not the right one. And that white is connected to this stitch right here. Let's pull on it. Yes, we have the correct white yarn. Knit to the end of the row. And we look at it. Looks good. We turn it over. Again, I start at one side and go to the other. So see the extra green yarn here? From when we changed it and we laid it over, there's extra yarn. So I pull on that to tighten it up. There's a little extra white there. I pull on that to tighten it up. And that's what makes it very tidy. Now we're going to work back across this way. So we're going to have 3 knits, and then 2 white purls, 5 green, 2 white, and 3 knits. You have to watch this whole video because I'm going to show how to weave all these ends in also, and that's equally important in making the Intarsia look good, is how you weave the ends in. Now we're going to do 2 whites. Now we bring the white yarn over the green, pick up the green, and we can double check to see where it's attached by pulling on it, making sure it's attached to that stitch in the section that we're going to be working. It's actually easier to do the wrong side rows because you can see exactly which yarns you're working with, whereas on the right side rows it's a little more difficult. Bring the green over the white's way down here. This is the white, and it's attached to this stitch right here that we just knitted the green into. We want to pull it up a little bit so that we don't have an oversized stitch on the right side of the work. And we're going to pick up the white from underneath, purl 2, knit 3. Then we're going to go back, see how this big space here, pull on that, tighten that up. Tighten the green up, make it all tidy. Do you see how we're getting these nice connecting color changes here? That's what we expect to see. Turn the work, and we're just going to follow back. Now I do a short row in garter stitch one for every 4 rows. So we're getting ready to start the 4th garter row. So this is where I'm going to do my short row. I'm going to knit 3, and then I'm going to slip a stitch. If you have a 4-stitch garter edge, you would knit 4. If you have 5, you would knit 5, etc. So this is a 3-stitch garter edge, so I just knitted 3. I slip the next stitch tip to tip, slip it back tip to tip, turn the work, knit 3. So that's the short row. It actually creates 2 extra rows or 1 garter ridge. Then we turn back, and we're ready to pick up that wrap. Now you can see it right there. So we don't want that showing on the front of the work. So we're going to pick it up. If you were working all in one color and doing this, a garter edge to a stockinette stitch fabric, you wouldn't have to wrap because it won't show. But because we're using 2 colors, sometimes you'll be doing it over the dark color and it will show. So to conceal the wrap, you put your right needle up through this stitch as if to knit. So up through the wrap. Can you see the wrap around the stitch? Up through the wrap, through the knitted stitch. Take them off, put them back on as if you were doing an SSK, but you're not. And that pushes the wrap to the back of the stitch and makes it invisible. Then we're going to knit this stitch, and then we're going to have a color change. Remember, the white goes over the green. Here's the green. So the white goes over the top. You pick the green up from underneath the white. You can see that it's under the white right there, see? So the white goes over the green comes up from underneath. And you want to test it. Yes, it's associated with that stitch. We're going to have another color change here. The green goes over the white. You pick up the white. Test the white. Yes, it's correct. Work to the end. And then we're going to do a little short row on this side. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. So you have 1, 2, 3. We're going to create the fourth one. And then when we come back, it creates the fifth. Same thing. We slip tip to tip, bring the yarn forward, slip back tip to tip, turn the work, knit back. We just created an extra garter ridge. And this is invisible in the body of the work. We can see the little wrap around the stitch there, so we're going to want to conceal that. So we're knitting 1, 2, 3. And then we're changing to the green yarn. I'm sorry, we're not changing to the green yarn yet. That's the next stitch. We're going to conceal the wrap. Here's the wrap. Now when we're knitting and concealing it, we pick it up from this side, but when we're purling, and this is a purl stitch, we pick it up from this side, the other side of it. Can you see that loop goes all the way around? So you pick up the back and you put it up on your needle and you purl these together as one stitch. And that conceals the wrap. Then we're going to switch colors to the green and we test it. Yep, that's the green, the right one. And we're going to purl over here. Plus one more because we're widening out each time. Then we drop the green, pick up this white, and it should go to this stitch right here. We'll pull on it. Yes. We want to make that stitch the right size, not too small, just the right size so it looks good on the right side of the fabric. Knit the last 3. We're going to do 2 more rows and then I'm going to finish this off camera and then I'm going to come back and show you how to weave in the ends. So remember, we tighten these up. Tighten this one up. And look how tidy that's looking. Isn't that pretty? Let's look at the other side. Really looks good. Oh, we got a little split stitch there. I'll have to fix that. Looks good. Now, if you happen to have enlarged stitches, this is the one from the tail. There, those are good. There's one that's a little bit large. Here's one here. Once we're finished, we can use our tapestry needle and manipulate those stitches and even them out. It'll be just right. So let's do 2 more rows, a right side and a wrong side, and then I'll finish this off camera and come back and we'll, I'm pulling my tails through. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, garter stitch, ridge, a white. We're switching to the dark, so we take the light over the dark under, and we double check to make sure that's the right one. Yes. We knit over. Here's our split stitch we need to fix. There. And here. And then we're switching to white, so the green goes over. The green, here's the green and the white. The green goes over. White comes under. We double check that it's the right one. It is. And we knit to the end of the row. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're doing a vertical line or a right-leaning diagonal or a left-leaning diagonal. It's always the same. You take the new yarn, bring it under the old yarn goes over the top. Let's do 1 more row. Now we're changing to green here, white over the green, pull the green up, check that it's from the right place, it is. Green over, white under, bring it up, tighten this stitch right here. It's that stitch so that it looks good. And these are knits right here. Okay, so I'll be back in just a second. I'm just going to finish the little diamond so that you can see how to weave in the ends. We'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I finished off our little piece and we can see it looks pretty good. Notice how tall this is versus the width, and this is more proportional. That's because you know we get more rows to the inch than stitches to the inch, but since this is squares equal height and width, it elongates the pattern here. So if you're ever charting something, you know that you need to chart it longer or use knitter's graph paper, which will give you the direct proportions. So this is what our little square looks like. There are a couple of enlarged stitches. Here's one here. So I could take my tapestry needle if I wanted and just manipulate some of that yarn over into this stitch and equalize the sizes a little bit. You can do that. It's okay to do that. It is not cheating. Okay, so we have several ends here. We have our tail from where we cut the yarn where we did our last stitch. I didn't bind off because this is just a little swatch. We have our starting tail where we cast on. We have the two tails where we started our yarns, and then two tails where we finished. So let's start. We're not going to weave these in, but I'm going to start with these right here and show you how to weave in the ends so that it looks good. So you can see our little catches here. This is where we put the one yarn over the other yarn every time when we change from one color to another. See how tidy it looks? Isn't that nice? That's what it's supposed to look like. So you can see here we really kind of need to finish this one. It's just a partial one. So when we weave this end in, we're going to weave it in over here. So because otherwise this green catch here is flopping forward. It's supposed to, see how this yarn is pulling it back, the white yarn holds it back. This should hold that back like that. So we're going to weave the white in, duplicate stitch over these stitches. Here's the green. Same thing. It should be catching that white and pulling it this way away from the white. So we're going to weave the green in here. You see how that works? So let's try it. Let's do the white first. So I'm going to duplicate stitch this. I'm going to start right here. So it pulls that up. And then I'm just going to duplicate stitch over the back of the work. And you only need to do maybe 2 or 3 stitches. It's perfectly invisible, does not show through to the front, has the exact same elasticity as the surrounding stitches, and is extraordinarily durable. The biggest problem with it is if you did want to rip your knitting out, it's hard to find that end because it's so invisible. So there's that one. So we're going to clip that yarn off. I leave about 1/8 of an inch. Then let's do the green one. And let's turn it upside down. So we're going to go, I'm going to follow this one right here. And that's good enough. And then we'll move to the front and I'll show you how to do those. See, so it continued the pattern up here. If we look at the right side, you cannot see any of the tail weaves. They're virtually invisible. So now let's go down to these. The reason why we wanted to lap the old yarn over the new yarn, even though it was a tail like this, is so that it created the loop on the back, these two right here. Without those, when you start a new yarn, if you didn't do it that way, you would have a hole right here and a hole right here. In fact, before we weave it in, you have those two holes. But when we weave it in, those holes will be gone. So let me show you how to do that. Let's start with the green one. We take it through the back, just straight through that hole where it's coming up. And see where the yarn wrapped over it right there? That's where we took the white over the top of it. And now we're going to bring the green this way and we're going to duplicate stitch right here. We duplicate stitch the green over the green. We're just going to go under this loop and through here. You see how that is? Trim that end. Now let's do that last white one. See, and there's no hole there now. See that? See how it closed the hole? Same thing, we're going to go straight down through the hole where it came up. And that's where the green yarn went over it. We're going to move over here to the white yarn and duplicate stitch here. We'll go under there so it's not visible. It's okay to split the yarn on the back when you're weaving the tail in. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to trim that off. There you have it. Looks pretty nice on the back. Looks pretty nice on the front. Now this is what the scarf looks like that we're working on. This is the Intarsia portion of the scarf. Isn't that pretty? And then we have the mosaic portion, slip stitch, and garter stitch. So this is the scarf so far. The next section is going to be stranded knitting, followed by brioche, and then double knitting. If you like my videos, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Share my videos with friends. It's okay to share it on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, wherever you want to share my videos is great with me. And check into my groups on Ravelry, Knitting with Suzanne Bryan, and on Facebook, Knitting with Suzanne Bryan. Check back for the next video, and I hope to see you soon. Happy knitting!